Hey everyone, it's Colleen, the Preparedness Pro. I've got a great and fascinating guest for you today. You're going to love her. Her name is Jane Barlow of Barlow Herbal, and she is a highly successful herbalist and wellness fitness guru. I mean, anything herbal, health, fitness, she's all about it. She loves it. But she has quite a legacy of herbal understanding and education. Her father wrote an original book. Max Barlow wrote an original book that was quite popular, still is popular on Amazon today. And Jane has written a book called Be Your Own Shaman. You can see that. It's a nice hefty book. I love it. I've been perusing through it, and I just love her approach to having everybody participate in health and life and vitality. She believes that the body is capable of healing itself if given the right tools. Amen to that, sister. I'm right on board with you there. We have so much that strips away those tools, so we need to rejuvenate them and strengthen them. We had a great guest on yesterday that talked about in part how to do that through plant-based minerals. Jane's going to talk to us and answer all my questions. Thanks so much for being here, Jane.
Thank you, Colleen. Yeah, I got your list of questions and I'm like, oh, this is one of the best list of questions I've ever gotten.
Oh, well, thank you.
I was highly impressed. I'm like thinking, okay, this girl has done your research, but you also are a deep thinker about things like this. So I appreciate these questions. I printed them off and I'm like, oh, wow. I was wishing we had like 3 hours so we could talk about everything.
I know. I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them, which is the bummer, but we're gonna plow through as much as we can and just get the most. So let's start out with you and talking about, your legacy of your father, Max Barlow. What type of legacy tools did he leave you with?
That is such a good question. And the interesting thing is so I grew up in a big family. I'm second oldest of 14 kids. And my parents just kind of raised us off the grid, even though the living was very different. And I make myself sound like, oh, things were different back when I was a kid. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And so growing up with a dad who did plant medicine, he actually had a degree in medicinal botany. So you grow up differently when your parents, it's not always just running you to the doctor for everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just grow up different and you don't think it's really abnormal until you grow up, you get married, you go out on your own, you marry somebody who maybe didn't grow up that way. And, I have grandkids and everything now. So I've watched my siblings, myself. I've just watched the way that we're able to walk through the world with that base that we got as children and growing up with a dad. He never preached it to us. It was simply a lifestyle. And it was just the way we were raised, like we'd be driving, to church every Sunday and he would see a plant that he wanted to identify. Maybe it was in the perfect place in bloom or whatever. So we would pull over to the side of the road for a few minutes. We'd all pile out and he would say, this is the part of the plant you use. Look at the flowers are just blooming. And the Latin name is this and the common name is this. And you would make it into a tincture. Maybe we'll stop and grab some on our way back from church or something. So, and there reached a point as a teenager where I was just like, okay, this is too much, stop already, Dad, but then and a lot of us felt that way. And then as adults, we were kind of like, okay, this was a massive gift. So,
well, you say that, but you were a teenager when you essentially became your father's de facto PR person. You were only 17 years old because of the success of his book. At what point did you say, this is my lifestyle, this is my path, this is where I should be? At what point did you have your aha moment?
Yeah, so my dad was one of those people. That's really cool that you know that, because I've probably mentioned that a few times, and I love that you brought that up. So when I was 17, my dad released his book, From the Shepherd's Purse, and he put me in charge of calling all of these huge radio stations, these talk radio shows, and getting him booked as a guest. No one knew I was 17. And it was just one of those things. My dad was like, "You're smart." And it wasn't like I was smarter than my other siblings, but that piece of it interested me. And I was all about that. And so he just was like, "Go, Jane, let's do this." And I didn't really think that much about it. And I got married when I was 18. I had 2 babies right away. And before I even had babies, I joined a gym and I started taking exercise classes, and I fell in love. So I got certified to teach group exercise when I was 18. And I taught group exercise. I ended up teaching for 40 years. COVID shut down my teaching career, but I kind of figured it was time to maybe, let that piece go as far as teaching. Yeah. So I spent more than 20 years in the fitness industry before I am doing what I'm doing now. So I owned my own gym. I helped open a few gyms in California where I was living. And then I opened my own gym in Salt Lake where I live. And then my dad passed away, and he was only 62, and I'm already older than he, I'm almost 64. So it's like, it's really surreal in a little bit of a way. But when he passed away, his business kind of died with him, because he was your old school. Like, this is like he was such a prepper. Like, we grew up with buckets full of wheat and powdered milk. And he had actually a whole business kind of centered around preparing and food storage and all of that. So we grew up that way. And then he had the whole herbal medicine thing in there too. But I just had this moment that was really surreal. My youngest had just graduated from high school. And I was like, I knew I needed to do something different, because I was in corporate fitness at that point, and I was not happy. I loved the fitness part of it, but the corporate piece of it, and the expectations and the goals, and you got to sell this many memberships. I was managing a club, and I was not happy. So I just was like, okay, I need to do something different. I was making a ton of money, but you reach a point where you go, this is not happiness. And so with one of my sisters, I restarted my dad's company, and he'd been gone for 4 years, and now he's been gone. He died on January 1st of 1998. So 27 years he's been gone. So yeah, I didn't know that I would be the one doing this. But yeah, there is no doubt that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, and you do it well. Not only are you, an herbalist and a fitness guru, but you also have quite the story of running a successful business. Your business sells multi-million dollars worth of product with a sizable chunk of number of customers. And we could have an interview just on your business practices alone, I'm sure. So the title of your book, Be Your Own Shaman, that's intriguing to me. How do you balance that mystical and the scientific aspects of herbal medicine in your practice? Because some people feel like herbal medicine is woo-woo. They've just been programmed that way, bless their hearts. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, in fact, I really love this piece of it. So after I restarted my dad's company, I kept getting people asking me, are you gonna bring your dad's book back? Because it's been out of print since he passed away. He self-published it, was never back in print. So for a couple of decades, I kept getting, and it never felt right just to republish my dad's original work. So I updated it, I doubled the content. And as I was working on getting a title, I had a whole bunch of different things that I was, I wanted something original. I didn't want to use my dad's title. 3 of my siblings are adopted. So there's 11 natural kids and 3 adopted. And they are full-blooded Eastern Shoshone Native Americans. So 2 little girls and a boy were adopted when I was 4. The oldest was 4, and then there was a 3-year-old girl and a 2-year-old boy. So now they're all up in my age range. So when I was getting ready to write, I pretty much had written the book and looking for a title. And I talked to my brother, Bert, who is my Native American brother. And I said, I really love the title, Be Your Own Shaman, because it felt like it's not just a biological, mechanical thing that plants do. There is a deep wisdom. There's a mystical component because there is energy and frequencies, and there are so many like I talk to the plants, and the plants sometimes tell me things. And I know that does sound super woo-woo. I mean, I go all the way there. And because now things drop into me, it's okay if people think I'm woo-woo. I really don't care. But I said to my brother, what do you think of this title? Because I didn't want, it's not that I was worried about offending anyone. And he was just like, I love that title. And then he said this to me. He said, I think that you're going to be the bridge between the beautiful history of medicine men, medicine women that's in the indigenous populations and the white people. Like, you get to be the bridge. You get to, Native Americans still love to go back and still practice a lot of plant medicine. Mm-hmm. I think people would be surprised. But that's still a deep part of their culture and their history. And I think that plant medicine is for everyone. It's not about, oh, this is only for us and we don't share with you. So that's when you share your cultures, that's what makes us a cohesive society. So that's the title.
For someone new to herbal medicine, let's isolate it down, because there's such a vast world out there of possibilities. What are the top 3 plants that you'd recommend starting with, and why?
So something super easy that almost everyone can add is my go-to is cayenne pepper. And it's super common. It's the people might not like it because it's a little spicy. And I'm a person who doesn't like hot, spicy foods, but I take cayenne pepper every single day because it does some really amazing things. It's really, really good for your vascular system and your heart. So if you think about how many people have heart problems, heart health, their veins, don't stay clear. I literally, when I was 14 years old, watched my dad stop a heart attack on a person he didn't know. It was a stranger at a gas station, and he had cayenne pepper tincture in his pocket, which he kept in his pants pocket all the time. And within 60 seconds, I watched my dad stop a heart attack. I was there. And cayenne pepper is a vasodilator. It is nourishing for your heart, your veins. It's also good for your metabolism, your digestion. It's got powerful antioxidants, so it's good for cancer prevention. There's so many things. So cayenne pepper, add a little bit to your food, add a little bit to your tea. If you don't like spicy foods and it's, you're just sensitive, cayenne pepper in capsule form is a great way to go. So I would say that's the top. I also love something that's an adaptogen. Like, my favorite adaptogen is holy basil, because adaptogens help to balance body chemistry. You think about the stress that we go through as modern humans, and we're always in constant fight or flight, and we don't realize, we're so used to it that we don't realize the damage that it's doing, because it's just modern stress. Our body doesn't know we're not running from a tiger. We just are used to this stress. But what adaptogens do, especially like holy basil, is it helps to bring your body into balance. So it balances, it's a hormone balancer. So that one I think everyone should learn about. And then probably one more, something simple like turmeric. Turmeric is good for inflammation and pain, anti-cancer properties. You could add some of these things, a cup of holy basil tea every day. Sprinkle a little bit of cayenne pepper, maybe a little bit of turmeric. You're golden.
Wonderful. So if our listeners wanted to create a small herbal medicine cabinet at home, those would be 3 things that you would suggest that they stock up on. What about for first aid? Can you name a couple that you would recommend for first aid?
Yeah. So my favorite, I think everyone needs to have, the cayenne pepper. Everyone should have a cayenne pepper either in tincture form or some fresh cayenne pepper powdered, so that you can stir it into a glass and drink it if someone's having a heart issue. To me, that is such a problem, heart problems. And so that is definitely in there. And then from my perspective, you need something for infections. And my favorite go-to for infections is the plant lomatium. And my dad started studying this when I was a teenager, and it's a powerful antimicrobial. So what that means is basically it goes after any type of microbe infection, virus, fungus, yeast. So it is powerful against candida and some types of bad bacteria. So just please know that the information I share is not medical advice, it's my own experience. But I've seen people clear up strep throat, bronchitis. In the virus family, I've seen herpes, I've seen hepatitis, I've seen, shingles. I've seen these things just roll over to the power of limation. So to me, you need to have some type of antimicrobial. So even like elderberry, lemon balm, those are easy, super easy to get. Olive leaf, those are all antimicrobial. So you need something to go after infection, something for your heart. I would get something for inflammation and pain. So because that can be a real issue. This is where turmeric comes in. So a lot of these things have multiple, you don't have to really think too hard. You can just say, okay, I have turmeric and I use it daily, or I can use it in an acute infection in the case of like inflammation. You can take a higher dose of turmeric to go after inflammation. So you don't really need much. And then I would say you need something for like a skin wound. So I have I love to teach people how to make their own skin salve. It's actually super easy. You need only a very few ingredients, and it's easy to infuse an herb into an oil and then put it into a salve, and there you go. You've got your own homemade. So something for a skin infection.
Okay. So what are some common mistakes that people make when they start using herbs for health? How and can we avoid those?
Yeah, I think the common mistake I see most people make is first of all, they feel overwhelmed. And then they don't feel brave enough to start using things and then they think they have to do everything. They think, oh, I'm learning about herbs. And then they're like, well, there's so much. And take just the property of something that's got anti-inflammation properties. There's hundreds of herbs that do that. And so the first mistake that people make is they think they have to get everything. Or as much as they think they need to have an herbal apothecary of 100 different things, but they don't. They could take it down to like 5 or 10 things that would actually be a really beautiful place to start. So the biggest mistake is that people get overwhelmed, and then it makes them kind of like stuck, and then they don't actually start because they're just like they start dipping their toe into learning about herbs, and then they here's about something else, and they're like, oh, I got to get that. Oh, I got to get that. And it's like, no. Start really small and start really simple. That's the biggest mistake I see people make.
So I'm curious, without naming names, of course, has there been a client or a case that completely amazed you with how they heal using herbs?
Yeah. So my dad made a formula out of a Venus flytrap plant, a species called Dionea muscipula. Now that's a big name but there's several species of Venus flytrap. I don't carry this, but about 14 or 15 years ago, a very good friend of mine lives here, she got diagnosed with a stage 4 glioblastoma, which is a brain tumor. And it was stage 4 when they found it. And she was 74 years old. And it was like, she wanted to first come and get, it's a very dear friend. She wanted me to come and help her with some stuff. But her husband was so afraid for her. They told her the brain tumor was inoperable at the outset. They said it's too wrapped around. We can't take it out. We need to try to shrink it, and chemo and radiation and so they basically said, we can't operate on it, and you have about 6 weeks to live, even if we give you the treatments we know. So this is a pretty dramatic case, but this is like a personal one because this was a dear friend of mine. So basically, her husband was afraid. He said, you need to at least let him, they wanted to do surgery. So they opened her brain up. They poked at it a little bit, and then they closed her back up because they said it was inoperable. So then after she came out of the hospital, we connected and I got her on a few things, and I had a tincture of Venus flytrap that was my own personal use. And Venus flytrap, think about it, is carnivorous. And this is a magical plant, because I noticed some of your questions were about mystical, magical, amazing plants. So a Venus flytrap can catch insects and it has digestive juices. So think about that. It can actually catch flies, digest them. And so when you make a tincture, and my dad taught me how to do this, out of fresh Venus flytrap plants, because you don't want it to be dry. You don't want dried plants. You want plants that are fresh, where all the digestive juices are still viable. You get them into a tincture, and then once it's in a tincture, it has an indefinite shelf life. So I had some of this Venus flytrap. I put her on a super high dose of it, along with some other herbal stuff. She changed her diet. She quit drinking alcohol. There was like this whole thing. And to make a long story short, at the 18-month MRI mark, there was 0 tumor activity.
Wow.
And her doctors they actually had the nerve to say to her, well, maybe it wasn't exactly what we thought it was. I mean, they opened up her brain and looked at this thing. So that's probably one of my favorite stories. And she just passed away a couple of years ago, but she was in her 80s. She got like 11 or 12 years added onto her life. So I think that what we need to do, I think we just need to realize that there is powerful knowledge and wisdom in plants that we might not even realize are out there. So that's one of my favorite.
Can you share a surprising or unusual use for a plant that people might not know about?
Oh my gosh, there seems like so many. Yeah. Okay. So ginkgo biloba. Many people are familiar with ginkgo.
Mm-hmm.
Ginkgo is actually used extensively in Europe, especially in Germany, to help people with dementia, Alzheimer's. Ginkgo biloba improves circulation and oxygenation to your brain. If you think about your brain is your hungriest organ. If you don't have oxygen for even short periods of time, you can start to do damage to your brain. So it's really important that your brain, you do things, exercise, eat right, all that stuff. But ginkgo is something I started studying right before I turned 50. And I just thought, you know what? So many people that are older that I know are starting to have health problems, like dementia, memory, brain fog, stuff like that. And I was just like, I'm going to prevent. So the thing that surprised me is I was reaching a point where I was starting to need glasses to drive with for long distance. So especially at night, if I needed to drive somewhere at night, I always had to wear driving glasses. And I didn't even know it was a total side benefit. But after about 6 months, I was taking ginkgo. It was a tincture of ginkgo. And a tincture is nice because it can cross the blood-brain barrier. The base that it's in is alcohol. Mm-hmm. So basically, I just was taking it for daily prevention, mental clarity, all of that stuff. And I didn't even notice it until I just realized, oh, I don't need my glasses to drive at night anymore. And then when I researched a little deeper, ginkgo helps with long distance vision. So I was like, bonus, that's a bonus. So now, I'm almost 64 and I don't need driving glasses. So.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I want to know what the herb is for nearsightedness. That's what I want.
I know. I'm actually starting to need reading glasses a little bit. So I'm looking into that. I'm like, what the heck?
Let me know, Jane. Let me know. So let's talk about some other health issues. Immunity boosters, because your cold and flu season, so many people just accept it as a part of life, but it doesn't have to be. What are your top herbal recommendations for staying healthy during the winter months?
Okay, well, all this stuff I've already talked about. So like lemon balm and elderberry are two of my favorites. And I wouldn't go through cold and flu season without lomatium. Just because my dad formulated a tincture out of it when I was 14. So I raised my kids on it. My grandkids now ask for it. They actually help themselves. They have a whole herbal cupboard that they use. But I think I would also put adaptogens in there so that you can prevent,
The
and
stress fighting.
it's like
Yeah.
if you can prevent the stress, because there's cold and flu season, I think is a bit of a myth, because it's like, think about when that happens. It's like it happens during the holidays when it's stressful. It happens when we're not getting enough vitamin D from the sun for some people who live in cold climates. And we're conditioned mentally to think, oh, it's cold and flu season. And I think our defenses just get down. So I think you need to have a good antimicrobial, something that will help you with that. But then you need to keep your stress levels low. You need to make sure you sleep. You need to eat clean, drink water, exercise. All those things are really important. But some of these other herbs will help you keep your immune system strong. But you can take all the herbs you want, and then the moment you have a really stressful situation, your immune system just goes boom. So you really can't cover up a poor lifestyle and keep your immune system strong with herbs. Like, you can keep your immune system strong using herbs, but the other stuff has to come in. It has to. And that's easier said than done, I know.
So, talking about sleep, insomnia is a big issue for a lot of people. What herbs work best for a restful night's sleep?
You know what? You're going to have to ask me that again. We had a bad connection. I couldn't hear that.
We were talking about sleep.
Okay.
So, insomnia being a big issue for many, which herbs
Mm-hmm.
work best for a restful night's sleep?
Well, my favorite is valerian root. And what I found is when you blend it with something like vervain, blue vervain, or even, again, another adaptogen like ashwagandha, rhodiola, even holy basil, if you just bring that first one I talked about in. But what I love about valerian root is that it calms the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So not only can you use it for insomnia, and I've had amazing results with this over the years as I've had different stressful situations or things that I just couldn't sleep because I can't stop the overthink. Can be a lot of people's problems. They're just thinking and thinking and thinking about things. But valerian root helps put your nervous system, it helps calm the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So that would be the first herb that I would take a look at for insomnia and keep in your herbal apothecary to use when you need it.
Okay. So let's switch to something a little bit more fun in our questions. If you could have a superpower, an herbal superpower, if you could transform into any healing plant, which one would you be? Why?
I would probably be a Venus flytrap.
Well,
Because,
based on your story, I can understand that.
yeah, this is something my dad actually made and sold when he was alive. And it's a very difficult plant to get. And it's an endangered species where it grows in the Carolinas because it needs kind of, humidity and the right temperature and the right, the boggy growing conditions. But I have a person who grows it in a hothouse, and whenever I actually make this for my own use for myself and my family. And whenever I get a batch of these plants, they get overnighted to me once they're pulled out of the ground, and sometimes they're clipped. So sometimes the root stays in, but it's a super magical process. And when I very first did this, like after my dad had passed and I got my first batch by myself, I was a little intimidated by them because they've got these traps with these kind of hair-like things. And I was kind of afraid to touch them because they're so different. And most people, you might get a little Venus flytrap plant in the store in a little tiny pot that you get for your kid to, maybe put in with their lizard so that it'll attract the flies or whatever. But most people don't handle if I get 2 or 3 pounds of Venus flytrap plants, they are so, like, I I'll wash my hands because I have to grind it up after I get it, and then put it into a tincture within 24 hours after they're pulled out of the ground, because you want all those digestive juices.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I get these, it's almost like they are talking to me, and they have such powerful healing properties that it's also really good for your immune system, and they're good for nourishing your thyroid. So think about that. So when not only do they go after abnormal growths, but yeah, I would probably love to be a Venus flytrap, because the healing powers and what they do for humans is so beautiful.
Well, I've never seen a Venus flytrap field, never heard of one. So I guess growing in a hot house is probably a reasonable idea. Let's switch gears. Let's see if you could create a signature herbal tea that captures your personality. What herbs would it include?
Okay, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I would do holy basil. I would add ginger. I would add cayenne, a little bit of cayenne pepper, and a little bit of turmeric, and probably a little bit of milk thistle.
And why the milk thistle?
Well, milk thistle is really, really nourishing and protective and restorative for your liver. And most people, they don't pay attention to their little hardworking liver until it causes them trouble. And your liver is the most amazing organ, and we just don't recognize it enough and give it, we don't give it a break. We never, most modern Americans don't do things like fasting. And I'm talking about maybe even some intermittent fasting, where you might just skip a meal here and there and let your liver rest. So when you add something like milk thistle, and it's the seeds of the milk thistle where the power is, it just gives that, your liver just kind of gets that nourishment, and so it's kind of like you're giving a shout out to your liver. So those would probably be the things that I would put into a tea.
So you seem to be very in tune with what you do, and it's a part of who you are. What's a lesson that the plant world has taught you about life and resilience?
Well, that is such a great question. Mother Nature is here to be our ally. We have been so disconnected as modern humans in the Western world from the way our body heals, the way Mother Nature is here to support us. I think that, if people realized that the majority of the human beings on this earth, even now in 2025, still turn to plant medicine first. And there's a reason. The sheer abundance. And yes, we do need to do things sustainably. We need to do things with care and with, we can't just go plow out a hillside. That's never the answer. There does need to be a respect, not just to the land, but to the actual plants. I think if we knew the sheer abundance, here's a bold statement, no one has to be ill. No one. We might get ill, but we don't need to stay ill. And usually an illness is a sign that's saying something needs to change here. A symptom is always a sign. And what happens is we just cover up symptoms. We don't go, okay, no, wait a minute, what's happening and what do I need to do? So I think if we would take a minute to tune in and ground and listen, even if you live in a city, find a park, take your shoes and socks off, stand in the grass, stand on the dirt. You could even stand on cement. Cement is still grounding. It's when you get to the asphalt and the things that don't ground you. I think if more people took a minute, no matter where you live, and if you live in a place where you can go to a park or go out, like I live in Salt Lake City where there's mountains and I'm a big hiker, that grounds me. And if people would be still, even for 5 minutes, and listen to the rustle of the leaves and listen to the wind, blowing through plants or whatever, just take a minute, even if you don't think that stuff interests you. Mother Nature can heal you, and you just have to be willing to let it and listen and pay attention. It's it's pretty simple. I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, I believe that we have been given enough by God and to spare. He
Yes.
says enough and to spare. So I believe that wholeheartedly. He didn't say, I'm going to give you enough and to spare, well, except for cancer, well, except for dementia. Yeah. So I believe that the solutions are out there.
Yeah.
If you could leave one piece of advice about herbal medicine for future generations, what would it be?
It would be herbal medicine has always been here for us. And we just need to, Cal, I don't even know exactly how to answer this because that is such a big, big thing. We need to remember that we are part of Mother Nature. You know, we are higher intelligence, we like to tell ourselves, but health is simple. And plants let us know that there is a simple, beautiful wisdom in what they do and what they provide for us. And we need to be brave, and we need to start incorporating these things. And, you know,
Well, of all the plants that you've worked with, the one that's had the most profound impact on your life personally, would that be the Venus flytrap, or is there another herb that you would mention?
No, personally, it would be lomatium for sure.
Lomatium, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you think, you know, I raised my kids on it when they were babies. So if you think about, you know, as your children are building their immune system, you know, everything comes at them, and they're around somebody, they pick up a cold, because they're building not just their microbiome and their immune system, they're building their virome. We have inside of us viruses, fungus, yeast. We have all these things that make up this beautiful virome, and we don't want to wipe it out. And a prescription antibiotic can have its place. But if you have something like lomatium, which is a powerful antimicrobial that can, you know, I mean, I can't imagine not having that. If I was lost on a desert island, and well, I wouldn't need it then probably. but lomatium,
that's the one you would take with you, huh?
That would be the one I would take with me. But I'm really, really glad I don't have to pick, because I love having access. And I muscle test, because I take a group of supplements every single day. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like, I'll have a little group. I have a big group of stuff actually. And I'll just daily, I'll just kind of go through, and intuitively, I know what my body needs because I've practiced it for so long. So.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, how can our audience get in touch with you and your wonderful products that you offer through Barlow Herbal?
Yeah, so my website is barlowherbal.com, and it's BarlowHerbal. I have a little YouTube channel, and I share herbal wisdom on different plants every week. And I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, but I'm not really very active on Facebook. So, but well, easy to find.
Thank you so much for your invaluable time and for answering all my peppered questions for you. I appreciate that.
No, thank you.
I'm looking forward to finishing your book. It's been enjoyable thus far, and just downright fascinating. I definitely have some herbs that I need to make sure that I have on hand, and some that I need to make sure I start using as well. So thank you very much for your expertise and your time, and for following this mission for your life's path.
Thank you, Colleen. I am honored every time I get to share what I do, and hopefully just one person, some spark just kind of lights up in them, and they're like, oh, and they can see a path. So thank you for this conversation, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions. You got my email.
So barlowherbal.com is her site, and I'm sure we'll see Jane again some other time. Thank you so much, Jane.
Thanks, Colleen.